If you really want more Retsu stuff, you can go and read his Isekai adventure, but I don't think I ever will. So, I read it, and I'm enjoying it. Okay, you were all correct. You were all right. Well done. So let's talk about isekais for a minute. Isekai manga and anime basically follows the same trope. A protagonist, normally from our world, dies and finds themselves reincarnated in a fantasy world where they have special powers or some sort of destiny. They also end up having harems a lot of the time too, which I would be beyond shocked if Retsu ended up having. I think I'd drop it if that happened. I think I watched some of Shield Hero when it came out, but the whole slavery and also the lolly thing just kind of meant it wasn't for me. Yeah, it could be a weird genre. So when you take a recently deceased Retsu, stick him in a medieval fantasy world full of monsters and magic, what do you get? Non-stop violence. And not just violence, but martial arts techniques and references to fights of Retsus that we haven't seen since the Maximum Tournament. I mean, we even get the return of the freaking spinning lotus, which is just so peak. In fact, the whole manga is like a love letter to everything Retsu ever did in his first life and gives him a chance to go back and win some of those fights he'd previously lost. Sort of. Anyway, I'm so into this. But yeah, I'll give a brief overview of the situation that Retsu finds himself in, and if you want a detailed analysis of Retsu's life before this point, then you should check out my video here. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, hype, and all that other great stuff. And yeah, I hit 1,000 subs recently, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, and this is kind of awkward, but I also have memberships active, but I would like to consider that like a tip jar. I'm not going to be hiding any content behind a paywall, so if you think it's worth it, I appreciate you. So after dying at the hands of Miyamoto Musashi, Retsu awakens in a medieval-looking setting surrounded by inhuman-looking people making mochi. Just your typical morning. He very quickly adapts to this situation, realizes he has 2 legs again, and recalls the sensation of being cut and killed by Musashi in the Tokyo Underground arena. He contemplates on whether this is a dream or the underworld until he's surprised by Shinji Nakamura. Who's Shinji Nakamura? Well, funnily enough, he's a fan of Retsu's who witnessed him dismantle Katsumi Orochi in the Maximum Tournament and was a member of Shinshinkai Karate when Retsu was invited to act as an instructor. Unfortunately for Nakamura, he saw Retsu running on water attempting to save Doyle's life and in his own haste to help, got hit by a truck and died, which explains why he's also here. Oh yeah, lots of isekais begin with people getting hit by trucks. But you definitely knew that. Nakamura has been here for a while, so he takes Retsu to a tavern and explains the situation that they find themselves in, whilst a lizard man orders a cockatrice cocktail. Cockatrice? Which is just the blood of a mythical hybrid chicken, dragon, snake creature. Retsu stares it down, contemplating that it might be as strong as pickle. It's not, and provokes it into a fight. This is interrupted by an old fisherman who saunters in between the two and slices off the lizard man's tail using just his fishing pole. Nakamura recognizes the old man as a famed and renowned dragon slayer by the name of Kaioh Isekai. I don't care if that's wrong. I'm sticking with Kaioh Isekai. Retsu is fascinated by this and greets the old man the only way he knows how, with a swift kick to the face. With his interest piqued once again by his encounters so far, Retsu realizes that this is a perfect environment for him to further Chinese Kenpo and establish it as the perfect martial art in this new world. It's Chinese Kenpo's 4,001st year of existing in Retsu's eyes. It's great. Which is just so Retsu. It really takes me back to his introduction in the Maximum Tournament, where he was this kung fu supremacist who dogged everybody else for not using kung fu or being Chinese. Anyway, Retsu and Nakamura are assaulted by Amakusa Shiro, a real historical figure and leader of the Shimabara Rebellion, which was a Catholic uprising in the early 1600s. Like Retsu, he's a struggler in this new world, but he has actual magic. After Retsu uses just the brute strength of his lungs to blow away magic fire, Amakusa lets Retsu in on the fact that he too was a loser who died with a strong desire for victory, which meant that he was sent here upon death. We also learned that upon defeating all the other strugglers and being the last man standing, that individual might be given the chance to return to their original world. I'm not sure. That's kind of what it looks like, which Retsu rejects because this new world excites him. Also because this is a spin-off story, so yeah, Retsu is most likely staying dead in the main story. So then Retsu declares that the purpose of his resurrection is to beat the crap out of everyone else and assert Chinese martial arts dominance, which marks the start of Retsu's warrior's pilgrimage. It's the same pilgrimage that he talks about in the Maximum Tournament when Chinese fighters went to Rome and kicked the shit out of people in the Colosseum. The Maximum Tournament is peak Baki, by the way. I want to make that clear. Royal guards then turn up in an attempt to arrest Retsu, who, like Musashi, when confronted by the police, refuses and defends himself in a less murdery way, until Greedor Easton again reveals himself and convinces Retsu to come with him to meet the king of Brakerka. Oh yeah, this country's called Brakerka. I don't think I mentioned that at the start. And yes, the king of Brakerka is Tokugawa, because of course he is. He's the guy in charge wanting to get strong people together to fight, although his intentions are far more sinister. Tokugawa just loves martial arts. The king of Brakerka wants to do some sort of evil world-destroying spell, or that one ritual from Kengan Ashura. Quick cameo time of other strugglers. We have Amakusa Shiro again, Al Capone, Benkei, Napoleon Bonaparte, and this one is either Oda Nobunaga or Lubu or Sasuke Kojiro. Not sure. When I looked it up, that's kind of the three that people were assuming it was. The others are quite easy to work out. So after assaulting the king because Retsu is just picking every fight he can, he's dropped into a pit home to a 9-headed hydra, which Retsu defeats pretty easily. We get to see Retsu use shuriken again. They're just hydra teeth that he ripped out motorbase style. Baki-like animal fighting styles, and the age-old classic mistake of cutting off a hydra's head, which sometimes means 2 more grow back, but in this case, it just makes the original grow back but even deadlier than before. Retsu compares this fight to going to a theme park for the first time, or his first ever sparring session, and I really have to give props to the team of Sai Ihara and Eiji Murai, because this really does feel like a Retsu-style fight. There are easily recognizable moves and stances, and the fight feels fluid in the way you would expect of a kung fu practitioner. Retsu ends the fight with a 1-inch punch, or a sunke, destroying the creature's heart. Reveling in the fun he's had, Retsu spots a dragon, declares this world to be fun, then swims upriver like Yujiro and escapes. His new pilgrimage has begun. He's going to fight every warrior, monster, and martial artist he can. It's very simple. So I'm going to leave it there on the story analysis before this becomes a really long recap, and I would really encourage people to read this for themselves if they haven't already. This was up to chapter 15, by the way. What I will do now, however, is go over all the things I enjoyed about the manga and what it was like for me as a fan of Retsu to see him back in action. So let's start with what this new world represents to Retsu. Other than testing himself against new foes and showing off Chinese martial arts, Retsu has an opportunity to put into use techniques that we haven't seen him attempt before. When he fights stinky little goblins, he uses Yuichiro and Yujiro Hanma's technique, dress, which I can only assume is because at a whopping 5'9", Retsu was actually too small to use this technique on conventional opponents. He could use it against kids, but he also has good reasoning for this. As a master of Chinese weaponry, he should be able to use dress at the highest level, which he does. It's a devastating technique, mostly for the goblin being used as a nunchuck, and it also feels like a cathartic bit of payback, as leading up to his death, Retsu was flung around like a sword by his killer Musashi. In his fight against an ogre, not the ogre, just an ogre, Retsu uses the whip hand technique used by Baki, Yujiro, and Yanagi. He also uses the left hook he learned from Smokin' Joe to clock the ogre into next week. In his battle against his old master, who's a skeleton now, don't worry about it, Retsu uses Katsumi Orochi's Mark Punch without blowing up his own hand. So I have to assume that it's weaker than Katsumi's ultimate Mark Punch, but it shows that Retsu has the theory and the practice down pat. He also uses Shaori in a single instance to negate a heavy hit. And oh yeah, fun cameo from Shobun Ron, who appears to have killed Retsu's master in an underground fight in Thailand. Good for him. In the fight against the fire-breathing salamander, Retsu uses Doppo Orochi's ultimate defense to dispel the flames aimed at him, albeit without making his eyes look in all directions like Doppo used to be able to do. Rest in peace, Doppo's eye. The Headless Horseman uses the Apnea Rush, just like Spec in his fight against Hanayama. Watch my video on that right here. But instead of being able to hold his breath for 5 minutes, this guy doesn't have lungs in the first place, so his apnea rush can just go on forever. In that same battle, we get the return of barefoot fighting and toe grabbing. And again, in this fight, we get the second return of the Mark Punch, but this one is preceded by the use of Baki's mind-reading technique. It's the one that lets you sense an opponent's intention and react quicker than they can read you. It's what Baki used to knock Yujiro out for like a split second. And I think those are all the techniques that Retsu borrows from the main series. If I've missed any, let me know. Now, let's talk about references to the main series in general. There's a lot, and no doubt I missed some, so let me know in the comments again which ones I didn't spot. These references range from obvious character comparisons like the ogre being a mix between Yujiro Hanma, Pickle, and the Yashirape, down to this image of Robert lying injured in bed, similar to how Retsu was after his fight against Pickle. And in a meta way, some of the paneling is reminiscent of how Itagaki draws his own panels. We see many times in the main series, characters pull this deadpan expression across 3 panels, and that's something we also get in Isekai'd. And speaking of the ogre, during that fight, he opens up the battle with the same 3-hit combo followed up by a brain shaking that he used on Pickle. When this doesn't work, he uses the whip hand technique, which is exactly how Baki himself inflicted damage to Pickle. This fight and some others offer Retsu the opportunity to right some wrongs and redo the key fights in his life. It's cathartic for Retsu, and it's cathartic for the reader. It honestly feels good to see Retsu redo these fights against pseudo stand-ins, even if they're not on the level of the original opponents. But you know what? Retsu's the protagonist now. Go win some fights, man. The other example that comes to mind is how the arena that Retsu fights the Headless Horseman in is designed to look like the Raitai tournament stage. Retsu then uses this opportunity to again right the wrong of the Japanese-American alliance, destroying the Chinese Kaioh representatives. Retsu carves a stone golem into a sphere like he would have done upon becoming a Kaioh. That's pretty fun. The Headless Horseman uses pancreation. That's pretty cool. Even though Kung Fu eclipsed it 4,000 years ago or something stupid like that. Retsu uses his air cannon technique at least 2 times that I can remember. I love seeing the return of that. Oh yeah, and I mean this with all sincerity. Can someone please explain tit sniff to me? It's really funny, but I don't know where this came from. And the goblin doesn't have another name as far as I can tell. Also, he really looks like Spec. Is that just me? He really looks like Spec. Yeah. So this whole series so far feels like a homage to a classic character who unfortunately peaked early in the series. Retsu will forever be one of my favorite characters, and Isekai'd does a good job of respecting his legacy whilst doing something new. So far, anyway. I'm only up to chapter 62, so I'm hoping that it stays good. But you know what? I'm going to keep reading. It's not a genre that I'm too excited about in general, but its presentation as a fighting manga first over anything else will definitely help to keep me invested. It really does feel like I'm just reading more Baki. The paneling, the narration of fighting techniques, and the callbacks to the main series are all keeping me pretty hooked. And sometimes as I'm reading it, I feel like it was made for me to spot specific moments and go, oh, that's from the Maximum Tournament, or that's what Retsu said to Doyle in the bar scene. It's rewarding as hell. I'm all for it. So if you haven't read Isekai'd, Retsu does a reincarnation thing, then I would really encourage you to do so, and thank you to the people in my comments who told me to read it. You were right. It's pretty good. I'm probably going to make my way through the other spin-offs. I started Hanayama in school. That's been pretty fun. I don't think there's anything else. I did the whole like and subscribe thing already. So yeah, here's a Baki playlist, and here's a video on Predator 2. So go nuts. Say hi to your dad from me, and peace.